probably some more David Packards. There may even be one out here in this room right now, or a Mark Zuckerberg. You know, innovation is constantly changing. Technology is constantly changing. I think we missed the boat on, you know, we should have tried to get a spaceport designation. If we could have done that instead of Front Range Airport in Denver getting it, we would have been a better suit for that designation. If we could have done that, the jobs that would come just with that designation, and Pueblo could have marketed itself.
Politicians can say anything and everything. They can say whatever the hell they want to say. They'll lie to that person and lie to that person. They'll fill you out and then tell you what you want to hear. But when they write their platform down, when they write it down on paper, when they write it down, we see precisely where they stand. A platform.
Piss Lori Winter off, you plant a sunflower. It's illegal. The municipal code says you can't raise any sunflowers, and she's going to enforce that sunflower ban to the tilt. So when I think about Lori Winter, I think about those Picasso fishermen. You start out thinking that it's a good thing, and then you start putting pressure on people. And now because they got sunflowers in their yards, they have a $500 fine. They don't have the money, so now it's $1,000. Now it just keeps on doubling every month for some reason. They go to the municipal court. Nobody gives a shit there. The judges, the lawyers, the cops, nobody gives a shit. You broke the law, right? You raised sunflowers. You weren't supposed to raise the damn sunflowers. You could citizens arrest people in Pueblo City for having sunflowers. So the Picasso fishermen started out with just a boat tax. And then 100 people were getting massacred. So that's Lori Winter. She'll come in and she'll say, you need to, get that, whatever out of your yard. And then eventually they're all going to get beat up. So there's a balance. There's a balance. If everybody is as wealthy as Lori Winter, had a bunch of rental properties.
Now, Charlotte Perez, she's got a platform. Charlotte Perez, she's got a 10-point plan. Charlotte Perez is a people's champion. Charlotte Perez comes from the struggle. Charlotte Perez comes from the streets. Charlotte Perez is one of us. Charlotte Perez is you and me. Perez is for...
No to Larry Atencio. He says too many things that I just don't like. He says there will always be poor. He quotes Jesus as saying there always will be poor. So if I point out that there's homelessness or poverty, he doesn't have a plan for poverty. He doesn't have a plan for homelessness. He seems to have it both ways. He criticizes brown people and white people. At the concert, it was saying it was the white establishment. But I've also heard that Atencio doesn't even like people who have the same color of skin that he does. So Larry Atencio has always been nice to me. If I wanted to go talk to Larry Atencio, I think he would, listen. He would hear me out, whether I could convince him to do things. So I think Larry Atencio is actually good with the people. But I think what I want from Larry Atencio is I want him to stand up and just, look, we need to fix poverty. And you got to tell the people that you're going to do it, because if you're waiting for the people to just, put soft pressure on you and easily ease you into having a war on poverty. So sometimes you got to listen to the people, but sometimes you got to lead. Sometimes you got to say this is right and this is wrong. And Lopez Jr. is part of the Pillars of Unity. I love the Pillars. That seems to be his best quality. He's too quiet. I can't hear what he's saying. He used to be a city council person, so I know he knows the ropes. But what are his platform? What are all of his idea? All the Pillars of Unity, they're all good men. I really like 3 or 4 people that's of the Pillars of Unity. I think that's the best thing about Lopez is the Pillars. I wish I could have, heard his platform loud and clear, and maybe if we had some conversations. But Gradisar, he's the worst of all the progressives. I wouldn't hate if Gradisar won the thing, but I wouldn't be that happy about it either. I think he's the worst of the progressives, if he's progressive at all. He's a Democrat. He believes in the ombudsman, talks about a capitalist war on poverty, not a socialist war on poverty. And then he also said something else called municipal electricity. He's pushing for municipal electricity, so I think that's radical as fuck. But is that enough? Steve Noraki had talked about getting municipal electricity, so if you want municipal electricity, Steve Noraki will do it, Gradisar will do it, Janet Wilson will definitely do it too. Janet Wilson will get all the things, all the progressive planks that Gradisar is offering, plus, then some, and then some. So Tom Kroschel, he was there, he was thoughtful, he seems somewhat progressive, I can't really tell. He said progressive at a forum one time, but he strikes me as a right-wing, conservative, and then he's embarrassed about his like, you progressives need to do like this, and I think he seemed like a weird guy that was off to the corner, and then he, gave his opinion, and they were, the baseball thing, he was for it, then he was against it. So he's talking about how cheap money is. We can borrow lots of cheap money. Petco can make all of us rich. So he seems thoughtful, seems somewhat progressive, but I think he would run away from that label. And what was up with his pants? Was he trying to get me to have sex with him at the forum?
I did that by asking a lot of questions of the staff. This was one of the ways that I advocate for my people. I have a technical background as a graduate of the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, where I earned a degree as a marine engineer. I received a Coast Guard license as a third assistant engineer and a commission in the Naval Reserve as an ensign.
Aero Forum at the Entrepreneur September 11th Taylor Voss one. He had those pants on. He had them little sexy pants on, so he kept on. He was holding his hand, holding his legs, and sort of had like a little jolt, a little crook in his not gait, but in his stance. So I don't know what his point was, if he was trying to say he's a pretty little girl, if he was trying to be sexy. I don't know if he was talking directly to me. He just seemed a little bit nicer. He seemed to kind of break out of his shell a little bit. So Thomas Crossell seems thoughtful. He's not a progressive. He's not very exciting. So I don't even know why I put a soft no. I would not vote for Tom Crossell. But he's okay. People, Gary Clark would be a fucking badass. Okay, he has a Colorado Springs plan for the homelessness, so he's got a plan to end homelessness.
Have a transparent government for the people. I also want to reduce fraud, waste, and abuse of government funds. Also,
Clark is in favor of affordable housing. His wife is not, and that's a problem. Why would his wife be against affordable housing? She's living on Easy Street. She don't have to worry about the 60% of everybody's income is housing. But apparently Gary Clark's wife don't even have to worry about it. She went ahead and dismissed me immediately. Affordable housing? You want affordable housing? No, that is not an issue. Okay, well, it must be nice living high on the hog there. And so Gary Clark, I like him. He's in favor of instant runoff voting. He's got a Colorado Springs plan for the homelessness. He's agnostic neutral on the baseball stadium. So he's got something to say. He would be much better than any of the establishment figures, but he's not my one choice. Larry Fancher. I am in love with Larry Fancher. He embraces progressive like it's the good thing that it really is. Why would you want to be a regressive asshole piece of shit, huh? You're a regressive asshole piece of shit because you don't want to call yourself a progressive?
appointments and to help our city grow in unity and spirit decoy. Safety First campaign. We want to ensure our firefighters and all first responders.
People are a bunch of old goat heads. Steve Noraki, Chris Nickel, Lori Winter, Larry Atencio. They've been ignoring poverty the entire time. They haven't had a homeless shelter the entire time. There's no recycling center here. Lots of suicides. They aren't doing their jobs. They don't give a shit about the people. They're making them happy and then their rich buddies happy and nobody else. They need to love the common people, and I don't hear that love for the common people from them. They're a bunch of goat heads. They have a bunch of goat heads all over the city. Are they going to stop them? No, they have grown accustomed to having goat heads all over the place. So the corruption that is in Pueblo City is identical to the goat heads that grow all over the place. That's corruption. That's, an invasive species who goes around, picking on people, just thorns, poking people. You can't raise any damn sunflowers. You're not supposed to be allowed to raise any goat heads, but goat heads have taken over Pueblo City. There's probably about 10 to 20 more goat heads than there are people in Pueblo City. But they've been living and wallowing in their own shit. They've been complacent. A pig loves.
Have the most updated equipment and training to ensure our city's safety and our citizen welfare. Make Pueblo healthy.
I think that's an important part that we can play in this city, bringing tourism with I-25 going through. Also, I think that rebranding our city, that's something that I've been working on with a lot of other people for the last several years.
Lori Winter and Dennis Flores are the people that live on the luxury suites of the Titanic, and they look down upon all the poorer classes. So these are the two biggest fascist threats for Pueblo City is Lori Winter and Dennis Flores. I don't know, but Dennis Flores. When I first met him, he looked like he didn't really want to talk to me. He looked like he didn't want my vote. Looked like he wanted me to kiss his fucking ass and worship him. He didn't understand relationships or equality. He just wanted me to vote for him and worship him like a stuck-up smug-ass snob. I assumed he wasn't going to represent me, and he hasn't. He has wonderfully not represented. So mandatory trash, whippity fucking skip, that's what he's done. He's made it harder on poor people. Instant runoff voting, he's the one that pushed to kill the democracy that we could have had a great, fair, ideal democracy, but Dennis Flores killed that. Now we got a 2-round Kyrgyzstan cutthroat election. He's also for the total quality management. Don't trust a single word out of Flores' mouth. He's a liar.
I mean, to me, that's exciting. I mean, just think what our community would be doing in the future. You know, when I was in Atlanta, my second year in city council.
That would be the Pope building, and then also $50,000 for equipment. So I think it's paramount.
Civility now that he's got power, he's like, hey guys, y'all be respectful of my stupid decisions and be respectful of my lies. Dennis Flores is a liar. He's a liar. You can't believe a single word out of his mouth. He's sitting on the U.S. Bank Advisory Board, so you make sure U.S. Bank is, you know, they're covered. They have representation. I don't. Poor people don't. Homeless people don't. But the U.S. Bank, a corporation, does. So great for fucking U.S. Bank, right? Those corporations seem to have more human rights than the humans do. Larry Atencio, he brought $10 million in projects, which is great. That's awesome. We should give him credit for that. But when he says there will always be poor, that means he's got no agenda. He's got no plan to having a war on poverty whatsoever. He's not LBJ. He doesn't seem to think that poverty, you're going to need a massive effort to do something about poverty. And if you're not even willing to declare the war on poverty, poverty will always be there. You're right. If you think that poor will always be there, then they will be.
And as we begin to learn our differences and cross cultures, we'll continue to move forward and grow as one. As we continue.
He's got a board that's doing some crazy things. I don't know. I'm just going to say that. And on the last note, I want to commend the police because they've been working really hard over on the east side. And there was a woman getting beat up in an alleyway right behind our place, for 5th and Hudson. And I called and they were there and apprehended him. So I want to give my thanks to the police for doing their job. I would love to see the community police station utilized more because now we have the drug addicts sitting along the building where the wall is falling down, I might add, and we asked to use that building to do something good with it. And we still haven't gotten a reply. The city owns it. We can put volunteers in there and we could make it into something useful instead of having the drug addicts and the homeless sitting all around that old police station. So I'm asking you to reconsider that. But let's get some help over there. And Larry, you're the one that needs to pull this together.
Thank you. That's your time.
The council person.
Larry Atencio, I think he's a nice guy. I think I can approach him, you know, with an idea here and there. $10 million worth of projects. He's brought a lot in. So I can't hate him totally. He's a mixed bag. Nick Gradisar, he's a mixed bag too. He wants municipal electric, capitalist war on poverty, and ombudsman, but he's not for instant runoff voting. He had the 2-round Kyrgyzstan cutthroat election embedded in there. So Nicholas Gradisar is an Aspen man. He's got an Aspen inferiority complex. Aspen does the 2-round system, so he wants to be like Aspen. He had an opportunity to get the best goddamn fucking democracy for our children and our children's children, but he said, fuck that. I never heard of this shit because I'm old and I didn't know about it, so I'm not going to go with it. Dennis Flores is lying, saying that it doesn't do the majority thing, when the whole point is to guarantee a fucking majority. The whole fucking point is to guarantee a fucking majority. But Dennis Flores is a lying piece of shit. Well, I chose the opposite, and now I just want to win the argument. Why don't you do what's best for the fucking people? And the great pool of ideas, the best ideas should prevail.
Because you do cut yourself and leave some flesh behind inside. It was a tragedy to see it close. Petco let it happen. Our governor let it happen. Our city council let it happen. The county commissioners let it happen. One of the county commissioners, Loretta Kennedy, had a comment that, well, we've had closures before, we can get through this.
Nicholas Gradisar, he's nice. I think I could talk to him 2-3 branches of government. He doesn't understand. He doesn't get the rule of law. He doesn't get constitutional government. He's a lawyer. He doesn't understand the Constitution. He can't alleviate poverty. Somebody says, how are you going to alleviate poverty? And he's like, you can't even try. Why even try? So it reminded me of there will always be poor that Larry Atencio said. Fuck it. There's always going to be poor and homeless. Why even try to do anything about it? No, that's not the fucking mentality. You got to do something about it, or you're just, what, going to tolerate the poor being poor so the wealthy get to live on the good side of the tracks and then just throw the poor into, that's bullshit. So he's the worst of the progressives. He's not the worst of the worst. That's Winter and Flores. But he did introduce Section 6.4, which is immunity for the police. So strong mayor is coming along with immunity for the police. which is another strike against Gratisar, as if they didn't already have immunity. Now they'll have guaranteed immunity. So expect the police to be worse. Now, they have order, right? They have order, but I want good cops, and we need to check the...
I do not support a new jail at this time. I don't feel comfortable doing that when we have closed school shutting down here in Pueblo. I have a huge notebook of plans and ideas for Pueblo, talking with the community and my own. I want you guys to know that I'm also from upstate New York. I was born here at the St. Mary Corwin, and Dr. Rivera delivered me. But when I was 10 years old, I moved to upstate New York. I would like to implement some of my New York ideas here. I also believe that renewable energy is the future of Pueblo. I also have a Facebook and a Revive Pueblo community page where I constantly keep Pueblo updated on the good and bad.
Candidates are incorruptibles. They will maybe go corrupt once they get some power, but because they're regular citizens, I just love every single word that comes out of their mouth. Everything Janet Wilson says, everything Gary Clark says, everything Charlotte Perez says, and Larry Fancher says. Everything that these, folks are saying. Ted Lopez, when I do listen to his ideas, I think I like what he's saying. He doesn't really have the je ne sais quoi to be mayor. I didn't think that Gary Clark had the je ne sais quoi to be mayor. I mentioned before that it was a superficial thing because you live in a town with 4% black folks, so that means he's got to get brown and white people on board. But the bigger superficial thing was just the way that he spoke. When I looked at Gary Clark, he didn't look like the mayor. And so that was just a gut check, and I kind of just dismissed him. He didn't speak, perfectly. But now that the chieftain is coming after him, who gives a shit if he speaks fucking perfectly? Nobody speaks perfectly. So that it gives people confidence. We're trying to communicate here. We're not trying to make fun of people.
Next candidate is Marie Martinez.
As an industrial engineer and quality control supervisor with CF&I Steel, a ship repair superintendent and contract administrator with Exxon International Company, and
with the spaceport designation, because we used to have Boeing, Kaiser Aerospace. Those people still live in the community, even though those businesses are gone. So I think we could have marketed that. We could have marketed the fact that we have 3 major universities and 2 community colleges within 30 minutes of us.
City by holding property owner responsible for the upkeep of their property. I also will make regular visits to the city and county of Pueblo to bring unity among both.
And now they have expanded. They've expanded into the region. I am so excited to be in their presence. They're securing business from Colorado Springs and Denver, and they are becoming scalable with growth and impact.
Next up is Luke Edwall, Legacy of Hope Celebration. Welcome, Luke.
Dennis Flores, you're up next.
Developed a process by which we could print logos on them. I took that company national. I had stores and manufacturers reps and wholesale companies selling my products all over the country, every state in the union except Alaska. What does that mean? It means that I can take a project national, I can take a project and make it bigger, I can take a project and bring it to fruition and bring it to where it needs to be. Like, for those you entrepreneurs in this room, you know that necessity is the mother of invention. Or as some people say it,
the more general funds we produce. The more general funds we produce, the more better education and quality of schools we can have for our children. As our children develop into young adults, respectful adults, and have learning life experiences, this in turn helps everyone else to prosper. So, with that being said, since we're speaking about small businesses, everyone that has a dream has a chance to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur is the backbone of this city as well as the United States. So, as we continue to progress as a community, and as we continue to grow as a community,